Hello everyone, welcome back to Pwn TV, and today I'm actually going to be showing you guys the Dragon Ball Super deck that I actually put together today. I think it's quite an interesting deck, so let me go ahead and pull it up here, and we'll get started. This is Universe 6, basically. Universe 6 deck, and the leader is going to be Kale. Kale is a great leader. I really like the fact that you can play her in this deck and really never have to awaken her and still be able to win. But I also like that in the deck list there's a few different tricks that I added just to kind of complement her untap 2 energy ability for her awaken, which unfortunately only happens once per game because it's really strong. So I did try to build my deck around that as well. And this is the list that I came up with. So basically, this is a mono red deck. I really like red decks, and I've always played red decks in this game since I started playing, and it seems to be my color of choice. I was really trying not to splash any other colors in this deck. I wanted to kind of go basic red, like everything was basically a red card that was part of my combo, and this is what I came up with. So we're actually using Kaba's Awakening from set 1 in this deck. This is really just going to help me with my Overwhelm cards. I want to be able to make sure that I have the cards in the drop to overwhelm with, and the fact that it has the 6k pump is a really good defensive trick that I have access to. I'll have so many cards in my hand with this deck because it's a Tournament of Power deck. They typically have a lot of card draw, and this deck is no exception. So my opponent's not going to know what's in my hand. They're probably going to assume a lot of it's not playable if I tap out, but if one of those cards is a Kaba's Awakening, it's definitely always playable, and it could blow out a lot of players in a lot of situations. So I'm really happy about this card. I just don't like using it offensively because it's not really 10k power, so if I had to like play multiples, playing 2 Kaba's Awakening doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. I mean, playing 1 accomplishes more than you expected, but playing 2 is starting to have a diminishing return on the power boost that you get when you start stacking this card. So your Alpha Strike is a little bit weaker, so I really don't think that I should run all 4. And so in order to make this deck 50 cards, I did cut 1, and I play 3 Kaba's Awakening in this deck. So there's 3 Kaba's Awakening, and I'll just pull them all out here. Okay, the rest of the cards are, I'll go in order from energy costs so we can kind of just keep track of how the deck is going to play from turn to turn. So in our 1-drop slot, I have 4 copies of Caulifla. This is your vanilla 10k body. There is one for every color now, a vanilla 10k body, and I particularly like this one in the deck for several reasons. A, it's a Saiyan, so if I do want to play Pride of, what is the 0 cost card that gives all Saiyans barrier, that would work in this deck. I forget the name of it. I took it out of this list. I didn't think it was right, but I could still put it back in, and she's a Saiyan, so it would be affected. All the same, most of these cards are Saiyans with the exception of the hit package. She's an alien, so if I wanted to actually play Vados in this deck, I could actually capitalize on her alien mechanic a bit more as well. And she's a Universe 6, so she has 3 different basically creature types. In this game, she has the Saiyan, the Alien, and the Universe 6 tag, all of which actually are relevant in this format, but in this deck in particular, the one that's most relevant is the fact that she's Universe 6. You're going to see that most every card in this deck is all Universe 6 stuff, and that's because of the way that I'm actually playing it. But one thing that you haven't seen yet is the fact she actually can evolve into another Caulifla, which starts a chain of card plays from the top of my deck, which is pretty nice. So I do like her, and she's a 5k pump. There's so many reasons to run this particular card that I feel like I can't possibly take it back out of the deck after having played with it. It's 10k, so it can kill the opponent. It can literally take a life from the opponent. Which is super relevant considering the win condition of this particular deck is lightning fast hit, and typically you want to get them to do as fast as possible, so no matter how many cards they have in hand, they really can't do anything about the evolve on the hit. So that's why I think Caulifla really shines in this deck, simply because I can turn her sideways. She's amazing when she's turned sideways and the enemy picks up a life card. She's also amazing when Kale flips, and now the Kale mechanic on the other side, I'll just awaken her really quick so you can kind of see the synergy there. She basically has a permanent that says if Caulifla is in play in your battle area, then you don't have to place cards from your hand in the drop as a result of this card's skill. And basically what that means is I'm going to draw a card when I attack with this card, and you're going to drop a card. You're just going to simply discard one from hand, and I'm not going to discard one from hand. Normally I would have to discard one from hand, but because most of my cards are Cauliflas in this deck, I'm almost never discarding one from hand. Okay, and I want to just double check if the permanent makes it to where I don't have a choice, because sometimes you would want to discard. It says I don't have to place cards. Okay, so that is a choice. Technically the words are you don't have to place cards from your hand. So it is a permanent effect that says I don't have to do it, but the effect on the card says I place one card from my hand in the drop. So I have the option, as far as I can read this correctly, I mean a judge can correct me on this, but it looks like I have the option to actually place the card in the drop or not place the card in the drop if I have the Caulifla in play. And that's even better because sometimes you do want to drop extra cards in the drop so you can play your overwhelm stuff. Either way, if it's not legal and you have to do the permanent effect, then that's also okay because you can play around with your turn enough to where there's not a Caulifla in play at some point. You could maybe combo Caulifla into the drop so there's no Caulifla in play, or you could simply not play the Caulifla yet and then do your effect on your Kale and then play the Caulifla. So you can play around with this mechanic either way. I just like how it makes the deck a little bit more synergetic. And basically, there is one other one-drop in this deck that I use, and that is going to be Kaba Universe 6 Mediator. Not Saiyan Kaba, not the original Kaba, the one-drop Kaba that's a 15k double striker when it picks up a life card, because honestly, this deck doesn't care about picking up life cards. This deck wants to literally just keep aggroing you until you're at 2, and then evolve hit. And you simply die. And that's all this deck wants to do. So as soon as the opponent's at 2, you just try to evolve hit and GG. So how are you going to evolve hit? Well, using Saiyan Kaba to pick up life cards requires you to A, attack the opponent, which in some cases won't be a viable option for you, depending on the opponent, or B, well, that's about it. I mean, you have to attack the opponent to get the life card, right? So, and that's one of those things that you have to decide. You actually don't have to get the life card, but in order to get the pump on the Kaba, you have to actually pick up the life card. There's a lot of reasons I can give to why I wouldn't play that card in this deck. The biggest one, though, isn't the fact that his ability takes a life card, because that's not a bad ability to have on that card in any deck, including this one, but it's just not necessary. But the big reason why I'm not using the other Kaba, the OG one-drop Kaba, is because it's not a Universe 6, which means that I just can't get it off of any of the other cards that try to pull Universe 6 stuff in this deck. So this is mostly all Universe 6 stuff in this deck. Wherever I can actually help it, I'm putting in a Universe 6 card. If it's not part of my win con and it's not Universe 6, I simply don't play it, you guys. So the Kaba's just not going to cut. It just doesn't make the cut, alright? So that is it for my one-drops. There are 8 of them, which is quite a bit. So you can see real early in this deck, your early game is real hard. You go really hard on turns 1 and 2. You're swinging, swinging, swinging. You're literally awakening your opponent on turn 2 if you want to. Typically what's going to happen though is they're not going to be able to play the cards that they get on turn 2 because they're not playing weenies really in most cases, so they're going to have a really large hand of cards and really not any strong presence on turns 1 and 2. They're going to start getting really strong presence on turns 3 and 4 when you use this strategy. So that's where we're going to be building into. So I'm going to show you my 2-drops, continue showing you the aggro package, and then you're going to see the tech that I have for the turns 3 and 4 to manage the opponent's hand size. Since none of the stuff you're hitting them with has critical, they're going to have a really big hand size. Alright, and I'll show you how I manage that to actually get to the lightning fast hit win condition along the way. So next we have 2-drops, and the 2-drops I chose to play are the Sister Attack Kales. The sister attack Kales are basically your BCC Gohan, your promo Gohan that was actually a 3-drop. It was double red and any other color that you want. So 3 energy got you this BCC Gohan card, and the BCC Gohan was basically like, I can attack, and when I attack I can choose one of 2 modes. I can give BCC Gohan double strike for the attack, or I can give BCC Gohan the ability to draw 1 card off the top of my deck for that attack. Okay, so typically a lot of players are, I mean, you can go either way with that card, but I see it more often than not being used to draw 1, and in this deck, that's exactly what you get with Kale. You use turn 1, play a Universe 6 guy, turn 2, play the Kale, and the Kale is gonna draw you a card on turn 2. The Kale is gonna draw you a card on turn 2, the Kale is gonna be focused or draw you another card on turn 3. Meanwhile, you're just killing the opponent. It's 15k swings every time you trigger this auto while you're drawing the card. You're also hitting for 15, so if the opponent awakens, it's still 15, which is still lethal, so you can just win with this card alone while you're drawing card after card after card, which allows you to protect these cards. You can simply drop them as combo fodder to protect these cards once they're in play. I would recommend protecting your board. It's not the end of the world if you have a board wipe against you, but it sucks. I would also try not playing into a Mass Saiyan, so be very careful on turn 3 or 4. I'll show you the cards you're going to use to deal with that. Be very careful not to overextend if you have a feeling that they're actually going to be using cards like Mass Saiyan Mysterious Warrior or anything that blows up the field, because that would really suck for you if you overextend in that case. Again though, if you do overextend and they drop all of your cards, you could simply overwhelm on the next turn for a Fu or for a Mysterious Warrior of your own and basically reset the game for yourself. So that's really strong. I think there is another 2-drop. There is. It's actually my super combo, so let me pull my super combo out really quick. So this is the super combo that I chose to run with in this deck, and this card is basically like, it's a Universe 6, so I can pull it off of the Kaba, turn 1 Kaba, grab a Universe 6. So it is a Universe 6. I can also pull it off of the turn 4 Caulifla play, I believe, because she also grabs any, it says any Universe 6, yeah. So any Universe 6, that includes this one. So I could technically grab this off the top and play it, or I can grab it off the top and put it in my hand with the Kaba. Either way, because it is a Universe 6, either way, that's really good for you because you're getting a free super combo. Typically though, guys, you're not using the super combo in this deck that often. Yes, it says 5 or less, and that's fantastic, but you're rarely ever at 5 when you're playing this strategy because you're drawing a lot of cards early. They don't have time as the opponent to bring you to 5. You're probably going to have to bring yourself to 5 to use this card, so more often than not, I find myself actually charging this or just playing it and swinging with it, just so it kind of screws with the opponent because they're going to focus it if it's tapped. If it's in rest mode, they're going to focus it because it's a super combo card. So there's just a little bit of tech that you can do to really kind of throw the opponent off, and they're never going to expect the lightning fast hit when you're doing this because you're playing these mind games with them. Swinging a 12k super combo card, why would you do that? Just playing a super combo card? Like, honestly, there was this match against Universe 11 Jiren deck, and basically they have this blocker that's 2 energy to play, and it taps to block, and it doesn't die when it receives damage except for after the first time. So the first time it's dealt damage, it's just tapped and it sits there and it doesn't die. But if I have the energy open and they've done that, I can just tap 2 and hard cast this and swing 12 at their tapped blocker, thus killing that blocker, thus tilting my opponent because I killed their blocker with a super combo card. Alright, and I'm not even at 5 or less yet. And now they're going to probably be focusing this card on their next turn because they're salty. So there's just a lot of tech that I have with this card in this deck. I really like the fact that I could just play it with the 4-drop, which we'll get to. Just really interesting card in the deck in general. But again, it's a super combo, so it gets stronger as the game progresses. I just honestly don't see it being needed in this deck as a win condition. I really don't. I very rarely have actually used it as a super combo, and that was only to deal 100,000 damage to them with a double strike hit. I had this 4-drop for seeing hit right here, and I just smacked him for 100k because I just dumped my hand, and that was enough to win the game. But I could have just as easily evolved that hit, and I would have got there that way too. So that is it for 2-drops. So that completes my 2-drops. You see that I have 4, you have 2 sets of 1-drops and 2 sets of 2-drops in the deck right now. So let's look at the 3-drop slot now. The 3-drop slot, I have these Kabas right here, and I have these hits, and these also these cauliflas. So I have a lot of 3-drop choices in this deck. Actually, here, let me move these over a bit. Move them there. Okay, so here are all of the 3-drop choices, and what you're gonna find in your matches is that it really, it does eventually matter how you play turn 3, especially if you have options. It might be tricky, so you definitely do need to think it through, because given the card draw you have access to in this deck, you're really not going to be 100% sure what the best turn 3 play is going to be out of these 3 options that you're given. You also have to consider that in addition to all of these 3 options that you might possibly play on turn 3, you could simply play more of your 1-drops. I would encourage you to play as many of these 1-drop cauliflas as possible. It's very strong since it can swing early game for 10 and take a life card from the opponent. That's extremely good for you. That gets them so much closer to lightning fast hit range, where they are at 2 life and they simply die. So it's an amazing card to play on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Play 2 of them on turn 2 if you fucking want to. Like, whatever. Like, just get them out there. If they die, then they fucking die. They just die. You can play other stuff. It's not a problem. That's a card out of their hand to kill this one if that's the case. Alright, so there's just a lot of turn 3 plays, but let's talk about these particular cards on the turn 3 so you're a little bit more familiar. In addition to all of the other cards you could play on turn 3, this is the stuff that you'll get. Now, this is Sister Attack Sand Caulifla. You don't really want to hard cast this, but if it's in your hand, you're probably going to hard cast it. If it's probably your last option, though, if it's in your hand. Mostly because there's way stronger options for you. And let me change the song really quick because I'm losing my train of thought here. Get wrecked, Fever. Okay, so what you would ideally like to do with Sister Attack Sand Caulifla is rip her off of a 4-drop Caulifla for free and play her, and then get a free card and a life card, in a free battle card and a life card. And that's what you would really want to do with this card. But if it is in your hand, then I honestly think the best thing to do is hold it for 5k combo cost, or charge it as a red source. I wouldn't charge your last one, so that means that you wouldn't ideally play 2 of them in your charge area. Personally, though, I don't ever like charging 2 copies of the same card, no matter what that card happens to be, unless it's a dead card in the match. I don't like charging it at all, because that gives my opponent too much information that my hand doesn't have those cards in it anymore. That many of those cards in it anymore. So I really like to avoid charging copies of the same card. So I will charge one of these, since I run 4 copies. I will charge one of these if it's in my hand, and hope the other ones are played for free off of my 4-drop Caulifla. That's ideally how I would like to play this card. So it is a back burner card that only really helps you awaken, and it only really comes in clutch if it's played for free while doing that. That's really strong. Other cards you could play, if you feel like your opponent's going to counter you, you could play this card. This card also bullies their untapped blockers that they have, which would really help you in the late game. There's just a lot of reasons to play this card that I bumped it up to 4 when I realized most of the decks playing Universe 6 did run 4. So that's an argument right there. Everyone else thinks that this needs to be a 4 of. I got my hands on the 4 copies, so I finally said, you know what, I'm actually going to go up from 2 because I was running 2. Because, yeah, it sucks that some decks are not going to even try to counter you, and so this card's kind of a vanilla body. Some decks don't even care about active mode cards, so like this would be a completely dead card in those matchups where they'll never have anything worth attacking with this particular card. Then it's kind of a dead card, in which case I'll charge it. But notice that it's also a 5k pump, so I could just simply do that as well with this card. It's also obviously a Universe 6, so it fits in with the Universe 6 theme quite nicely. And there's just a lot of different ways to play it. I just don't see it being as explosive as my 1 and 2 drops, though, honestly. I think both of these cards for 3 seem like too much energy in the deck to actually play for 3, so I would ideally just like to get them for free off the top, otherwise charge or combo with them. That seems pretty strong for turn 3. Now, a really good card to actually cast for 3 energy is this card right here. Now, I was running 2 in the deck, and my friends are probably going to think I'm nuts for bumping it up from 2 to 4, but I really do think that this card needs to be a 4 of in the deck, considering my win condition is Lightning Fast Hit. I think that this is a strong card that just simply keeps coming back to the battle area every single turn. All of the copies will, so you could basically just warp out your whole battle area and then simply play all of those cards for free on the next turn again, ready to attack again and wreck face again. And it doesn't matter if they have things like Explosive Spirit Son Goku blow your shit up, because you have 4 copies. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's so many of them, and they're so good every single turn, swinging for 15 and then blinking out. That's extremely good, you guys. Also, they blink back in and add 5k combo power to the board. In a worst case scenario, that's really strong. That's really strong. The fact that I have multiple copies means that I am not tempted to actually evolve on another copy of like let's say I have my 4-drop hit in play and I don't want to really lose the double strike board presence that I have. I could evolve onto this extra copy of this extra Dimension Leaper card instead of my double strike hit with my Lightning Fast Hit. That's even stronger. Why would I want to evolve my double strike hit into a double strike hit when I could keep my double strike hit and then get another double strike hit? So I really do like the fact that these are extra bodies that act as evolve targets for hit at any point in the game. I like the fact that I can charge one without regretting it, or combo with one without regretting it. I like the fact that once I have game state, like once I have like lethal damage, I could simply combo all of these for free. That's also really strong. And the fact that they just keep coming back. And they're Universe 6, I can peel them off the top of the deck with any number of other cards in this deck that do that with Universe 6 cards. That seems really, really strong. So if I have the 3 energy available and I'm not worried about dying, I am probably tapping to play this card. So I might as well have it in my hand. So I might as well run 4 copies, you guys. I can't see myself running 2 or 3. It seems very wonky to run 2 or 3 instead of 4. I think 4 is really strong in this deck. It can just do so many different things for you that there's no reason not to run 4 copies. The extra copy is always going to help you, and that's my argument for running less than 4 copies is if the second copy doesn't help you as much as the first one, then why would you ever run 4? But in this case, they do, so like obviously 4 is really strong. The one thing that I would like to note is that it is not a Saiyan. Hit is not a Saiyan, and that is relevant, and most people will make the mistake of assuming Hit is a Saiyan because everything else in the deck is a Saiyan, and they might play cards like the 0-drop extra that gives all Saiyans barrier. Hit's not going to get barrier, okay? That's not going to be super relevant on this particular hit, but I've seen people try to give barrier to the other hit, the 4-drop hit. That doesn't work, buddy. That just doesn't work. He's not a Saiyan, okay? So he can't benefit from other cards that affect only Saiyan cards, because Hit is not a Saiyan. Alright? So let's move on to the 4-drop cards. This is where we start adding a lot of spice to the deck. This is where we start actually catching people with their pants down, you guys. That's what we're going to be doing on turn 4. So here's what we have for 4. Okay, we can evolve into this Relentless Kale for 4 energy, so I'll just set her down here. It's a 1-of because I'm testing it. I think it would be, and I also don't have a second copy. I do think that it is a strong card for 4, given what it can do. And I also think that because of the way your deck runs, you don't really care about blowing up non-cauliflas and such, because you're just simply going to be able to kind of make these things like your hit may or may not even be in play at the moment, so that's really okay if you lose it to this effect. I'm just playing around with it because I feel like I did the same thing with Raging Kaba when I ran 4 Saiyan Kabas. I tried 1 Raging Kaba, and to me, you guys, this feels like a Raging Kaba, and we all know how bad Raging Kaba actually was. Nobody really played it after they tested it and they realized how shit it was. It maybe stole 1 win, if that, but they realized that it wasn't a really good card. Okay, so then they would cut it out, and that's exactly what I did, and I feel like that's exactly what I'm going to do with this card, because it's just not important enough in this deck to ever run, but I want to test it. So I'm playing it as a 1-of. I think that you could actually make room for all 4 if you wanted to, and it would be pretty strong in a Universe 6 deck. But since my win condition is Lightning Fast Hit, this is just not the play for 4 energy, alright, in most cases. So occasionally I'll have this in my hand and not lightning fast hit, and then I could have the opportunity to test it and really see how powerful it is. And after I get enough testing done, then I'll make the decision whether or not it needs to be a 4 of or a 0 of. But for now, there's just 1 copy, and that puts me right at 50 cards by running the 1 copy. You can see that I actually only have room for 3 copies of Unbreakable. I would normally run 4 in a deck. It's a 10k pump. In this deck though, 10k for 1 is really hard to come by because I'm typically tapping out to play my combo. So I don't have the 1 energy available to actually use this card. But by cutting it down to 3, that kind of does nerf my Awaken, because typically on my Awaken turn, I would ideally like to have an Unbreakable in hand to actually use the energy that I stood up. So maybe I should keep it at 4, but for now I've got it at 3. I'm going to test it at 3 and see how it feels, and if I feel like I need it more often than not on the turn that I Awaken Kale and stand up 2 energies, which is honestly like the best time to use this particular card right here. If that's the case for me, then after testing I'll actually bump it back up to 4. But I do like it at 3. I do think that it is one of the weaker cards in the deck because it's not Universe 6, and it does cost 1 to combo with. Everything else really costs 0, so I don't know. We'll see, but I do like the fact that it draws me a card deeper in my deck. So obviously I want to keep playing it until I can find a reason not to play it, and then I'll cut it out. But for now, 3 seems okay. Once I figure out the Kale, I guess, then I can make the decision. It would be a snap decision, honestly. 4 Kales or 4 Unbreakables or some combination or something. Maybe 5 and then drop something else. I don't know. I'll figure that out, though. But for now, this feels right to me. And I have tested this list a little bit so far and have had really good success with this list so far. Other 4-drops that I have, this is probably the best 4-drop in the deck. This is a card that evolves onto a Caulifla, which explains why I'm playing so many extra copies of Caulifla, because it's busted. This card's really strong. Also, I'm not playing green, you guys, so I don't have the ability to play Saiyan Teamwork Kaba and play Bold Super Saiyan Caulifla for free, because I'm not sure 100%, but I think that Kaba can do that. Either way, though, you guys, I do have to actually hardcast this card in this deck. That's my point. And typically the best way to do that is using the Evolve mechanic, and that requires you to have a Caulifla in play already. So I like the fact that it fits nicely in my deck because I have so many Caulifla targets to actually use the Evolve cost on this. So I'm tapping 3 and I'm playing another really strong body for 3 in most cases. That doesn't mean that you should avoid swinging with this Caulifla because it's not that important. I still think that this Bold Caulifla is worth 4 energy every single game. I would still say it's the same thing. She's totally worth 4 energy. She's just even better with 3 energy on the Evolve. So if you have to get that life card off the opponent and tap this, I would recommend it. I would never leave Caulifla standing up unless I had this card in hand and I was going to untap and play my 3rd energy. So if it was turn 2, I probably wouldn't swing this Caulifla if this one was in my hand. That's the only time. Every other time I would swing this in a heartbeat. Every single time. Because I really do like the pressure that this 10k body actually gives me. Alright? So this is the auto on this card allows me to literally pick up any other Universe 6 card and I can play it for free, basically. So basically I look at the top 7, find any Universe 6 that has 15k power or less, and I simply play that card. So obviously that excludes itself. That also excludes all of these Unbreakables, which helps me by dropping it down to 3 because I won't see it that often. So that helps me there. It also won't let me take this Kale, and it won't let me take these extra cards, which obviously I'm not running 4 of either. Okay? But everything else is good. Everything else is good. I can simply play any of this stuff. And they do stuff when they get played, so that's great. Alright? So many reasons to play that as a 4 of, so I really do like 4 of that card. Well, let's look at the next 4-drop that I have in the deck. This is Foreseeing Hit. And Foreseeing Hit is a beast. But honestly, not as strong as some of the other cards in this deck. In this particular deck, Foreseeing Hit is a backup, if anything, in this particular deck. I really don't even think I need all 4 copies. Honestly, I don't see why I wouldn't play 4. 4 seems really strong, but in general, this card is probably a 9 out of 10 in this deck list, whereas this card is a 10 out of 10 hands down. This card's a 10 out of 10. Like, these are better cards to play than this one in most of my games that I've seen so far, okay? But what does this card do? Okay, first off, it is a Universe 6, which means that I can get it off the top of my deck for free and add it to my hand with this 1-drop. So it is Universe 6. I cannot, however, play it with this card because it's 20k power. Okay, so I cannot do that, but I can get it for free with the 1-drop. That's fantastic, okay? In addition to that, it is a 5k combo power. I can always combo with this card no matter what. I could just simply combo with this card. Unlike Jiren, which is typically my 4-drop beater, my 4-drop double strike beater is typically like a 1k, like a 10k power combo card, basically. This is not the case with Foreseeing Hit. So that's something I would really like to put out there, that it's not a 10k pump, and it never will be. And so that's even better for you when you try to go for game and you have an extra copy in your hand. You can simply throw it on the table and say 5k more power to my guy, and they just have to eat it. They just fucking eat it, you guys. Like, throw all 3 extra copies in play right on top of the table, on top of your other one, and be like, combo. And I don't tap shit for that, alright? So that's pretty interesting, that it can just simply get comboed and play for free. The auto on this is basically like, I'm going to rip any 2 battle cards out of your hand that I want. Let's be honest, you guys, there isn't going to be a battle card in their hand that you can't grab. There's just simply not. What, are they playing Whis? Are they playing 12-drop Whis? Because that's like literally the one card that this fucking hit can't grab. That's a battle card. It can't grab extra cards. That needs to be noted. You can't take their Whis' Coercion with this card. You can't take their Flying Nimbus with this card. You can take their Master Roshi. You can take their Pride and Justice Topo. You can take anything else, but you can't take extra cards. Alright, that's just something I'd like to point out. You just can't do that. But in general, this card is nuts. It's really strong when I can say, tap 4, play this dude, take your turn 5 play away from you, swing double strike 20. Okay, now that you don't have a turn 5, you're gonna pass back to me, turn 5, play another one, take your dude back again, okay? Gonna swing another double strike and another double strike. Okay, so like, this is nuts. This just gets really strong with every single turn being take your guy, take your win condition. Absolute Great Ape King Vegeta from your hand, take it, warp it, okay? Next turn, do it again. Look at your new hand so I can make sure to play around it. Take the same win condition away from you. Next turn, play my 3rd copy. Like, when you play 4 of these in one game, it's fucking crazy. And what this does for you is this allows you to charge your 5th energy and still win the game. Charge your 6th energy, still win the game. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're still winning and charging cards and taking shit away from them while you're playing with this deck with 4 copies of Foreseeing Hit in it. So every single turn is going to be that. It's going to be take your win condition. Play another charge, take your win condition, play another charge. Eventually, you're going to have enough cards out of your deck that you're going to finally hit your win condition, and you're going to simply have played enough turns to be able to actually evolve into him, and that is going to be your lightning fast hit. Bada bam, bada bing, bada bam, bada boom. Right here. This card is going to evolve for 5. You're going to have 5 because you took their turn 5 away from them with this card. So since you took their turn 5 away from them with this card, you can simply get your 5 evolve. Or you took their turn 6 away from them, you can get your turn 6 lightning fast hit. Okay, which you would typically still evolve. It would be play turn 5, play an actual hit, turn 6, play the evolve mechanic on this hit. And that's what you could do. If you have to, if you have no option, you could actually evolve Lightning Fast Hit onto himself. So what that would mean is, like, let's say you have 2 Lightning Fast Hits and you have a Foreseeing Hit. What you can do is you can play the Foreseeing Hit to rip out their cards, and then you could swing the Foreseeing Hit. I would always recommend swinging the Foreseeing Hit. Don't even let them think for a second that you have Lightning Fast Hit in your hand. Don't let them have that information. That should be the surprise attack. That is your surprise. That is the surprise butt sex, you guys. So you don't let them know that you have that. You don't. You never charge it. You never show it to them. You make sure that when you play Foreseeing Hit, if you also see that they have a Foreseeing Hit of their own, you fucking grab it so they cannot see your hand. They don't need to know that you have Lightning Fast Hit. They don't need to know how many copies of Lightning Fast Hit you have. But if you have 2 copies of Lightning Fast Hit, in addition to this one, it could be like, boom, play this guy, play it, alright, take their dude, swing this guy. Okay, unfortunately, they killed this guy, whatever. Play your Lightning Fast Hit, swing it again. Evolve onto that card, you see what I'm saying? Or don't even swing it, play it and evolve onto it, doesn't matter. It requires 2 turns, and all that really matters is that you actually took their cards away from them. So you have to make sure that if you ever do hardcast this, that they don't have a hand, because you already looked at it. If they don't have a hand, and you know that the card that they're going to get back from Warp is no good, then you could just play this, and then pass turn to them, and then evolve onto itself with your other copy, if you need to. But in this deck, the way that it's built, that's never going to happen. In most cases, you're going to have this hit coming back from Warp, or you're going to simply play this, and then untap it, if it's still alive. But always swing it, because you have this to fall back on, and you could simply evolve onto itself if you have to in a worst case scenario. So there's so many reasons to just turn your guys sideways and give them the life cards. This gives you more cards to look at when you play Foreseeing Hit. So they have 10 cards in their hand. That's good. You can see the 10 cards. You can grab the 2 best cards with this card. So it's really strong. So their hand size is not important. My best use of Foreseeing Hit was actually locking my opponent out. I had 4 of the Foreseeing Hits actually played this game, and every single turn was Foreseeing Hit, warped the same 2 cards from my opponent, and it was his Foreseeing Hit and his win condition. Every single game, every single turn, play my Foreseeing Hit, take your Foreseeing Hit, take your win condition, which I forget what it was at the moment, but whatever. And then against the Jiren player earlier, shout out to my friend Dakota that actually was playing Jiren. Finally, somebody else plays Jiren other than me. He plays Jiren, and I know exactly how that deck plays. So I was like, okay, Foreseeing Hit, look at your hand, take your topo, take your 10-drop Jiren. Okay, next turn, Foreseeing Hit, take the same 2 cards, look at a new hand. Third turn, you know, see what I'm saying? Like every single turn, it's the same thing. Take anything I want. And then to round out the deck, we have 4 black cards with Overwhelm. And that is 2 Masked Saiyan Mysterious Warriors and 2 of the Scientist Foos. I think that Scientist Foo is really good in any deck as a 2 of. I don't see any reason not to play it in this deck. There's so few copies of it in this deck that it's never going to be relevant. You're never going to be like, oh man, I wish I didn't see 3 copies of Scientist Foo off of my Kaba Universe Mediator, thus making it a whiff, because that's not going to be a problem. You're not going to be in that situation with this few number of cards. You're always going to pretty much hit. 99% of the time, you're going to hit with this card. You're going to get the Universe 6 you need. And same could be said with every other card in the deck. The synergy is very nice, and it squeezes in 2 Scientist Foos quite nicely. They're also 10k power if you need it. So if you have 1 energy and you want a 10k boost and you have no warp, you could simply do that. Because you're not going to get 7 more cards back very quickly with this deck. I tried. I can't seem to make the deck strong enough to put 7 cards in the warp every single turn. Like some of my previous deck builds, I could actually do that. I could just simply keep playing cards every turn. And this deck, though, in this particular list, that's not the case. It's too aggressive. I don't have the extra energy available to actually play all of these cards that just drop themselves and net me another card or something like that. Like Unbreakable, like Kaba, like the blue one that they just printed. I forget what it's called, but basically he does the same thing as Unbreakable, kind of. I just don't have room in this deck for any of that stuff. So, in general, I feel like after having played this deck list a few times, I feel like right now this is probably the best it's going to get. I don't feel like I'm going to actually change this list a whole lot. And I really like how it plays so far. So I'm just going to set everything here off to the side. The spicy lightning fast hits added to the deck. Mwah. So good. So good. Alright. So that is the entire deck list. And I think some of the strengths and weaknesses that it has. I'll just make note of those really quick. So for future builds, if we go anywhere from here, you have this information. Okay, so Mass Saiyan Mysterious Warrior can't hit blocker cards. Most of the cards you need him to hit are blocker cards. He simply can't do that. You could use the other Mass Saiyan instead that picks up a life card. It's Ultimate Evil, I think, Mass Saiyan. That card could actually hit the blocker. This card cannot hit the blocker, okay? It can't hit the blocker, and that's what makes it a fair and balanced card. Because if it could, it would sit on all of the blockers all the time because they're typically like very, very few energy to cast. That would not be fair, alright? So I like the fact that he can't hit blockers because he's a fair card in that regard, and he's not completely busted. But that is his biggest weakness, obviously, that he is a fair card. That is his biggest weakness. The other weakness that he has in this deck in particular is the fact that he's also competing with Scientist Fu, and if you have both of these in your hand, it could be very tricky. Which one should you play? Here's what I would tell you. If you don't have Lightning Fast Hit, you always want to play the Scientist Fu. The Scientist Fu is going to give you the extra cards, which could possibly be the Lightning Fast Hit that you're looking for, okay? If you do have the Lightning Fast Hit, then you're going to play the Mass Saiyan for the 1-drop Double Striker to take away their field, especially if they have a field. Now, if they don't have a field, then obviously this is still a stronger play. Because for 2 more Overwhelm cards, which you'll probably already have in either case, for 2 more, you can get the same Double Strike ability, an extra 5k power, for the same cost of 1 energy. So that's really strong. Plus, you get to look at 2 new cards, which could potentially be 2 combo cards for you that are also really strong. As you can see, there are no cards in this deck that are extra cards that cost any energy at all. So every time that you draw a card off the top of your deck, you can combo with it with this deck. It's going to be 1 or 0, mostly going to be 0. There are some cards that just simply have a 1k combo, one cost combo power. That is your Lightning Fast Hit, your Fu, and your Mysterious Warrior. If you combo with any of these 3 cards, and your Ultimate, your Unbreakable Gokus. If you combo, oh, yeah, I forgot this one as well. The one of Kale. Those are all the cards that are 10k pumps in the entire deck. But notice that everything in the entire deck can be comboed with. You can combo with any of the cards in this entire 50 card list, including the only extras in the deck. Notice that there are no negates in this list whatsoever. No battle card negates, no topos, no nothing. There's nothing in this deck. Why? Because yes, you're going to be able to awaken your opponent quite early. So yes, topo might be a good play for 2 energy. You could make that argument. And by all means, cut some cards out of this list for your topos if you feel like you need topos. But honestly, after having played this deck list, I find that every single time I needed a negate, it's basically because I didn't have enough early game pressure, and that was what inevitably made me need the negate in the first place. So from my experience, with the fact that this deck is an aggro deck, and it runs quite fast, there's never going to be a situation that I can think of, that I've seen so far at least, where I need a negate off the top of my deck with some card. Like with some card, I need to get a negate right now, and I need to actually play it next turn. Why is that? Because you don't actually need to play any negates, because you're killing them on your turn. You're simply killing them on your turn, and that's going to be with your Lightning Fast Hit. That doesn't require a negate to do that. They're not going to be able to aggro you down as fast as you're going to be able to aggro them down. You're also not picking up that many life cards with this deck. You do have the 3-drop sister attacks that ideally you would like to play for free off of this card. You do have those as a 4-of that can take a life card, but that's it. You're basically banking on the fact that your opponent's going to try to hit you back and give you the life cards you need. But the deck plays fine with 5 life. When you're at 5 life and you can play your super combos, you don't need to awaken. You don't need to awaken. You can stay at 5 life and win the game just fine. All you need to do is untap, play your 5th charge, and Lightning Fast Hit the opponent. They're going to be dead. They're going to be dead, guys. It's just going to happen. That's going to be what happens. They're going to be at 2, and they're going to simply die. Or they're going to go to 1 and have to deal with like 5 or 6 bodies that are all going to swing lethal. Alright? They're going to die. They're going to die. When you tap 5, they're dead. They're fucking dead. Or they're going to cold bloodlust you. But in this deck, from after testing, I've realized that if you hide the Lightning Fast Hits well enough, the opponent's going to burn through their cold bloodlusts faster than it's going to ever matter. They're going to burn through their cold bloodlusts, hitting this Kaba to stop you from trying to get cards, failing to remember that you have a leader that just gets you cards every turn, and you have Sister Attack on turn 2 coming. So they're going to waste the cold bloodlust on that guy like a scrub, and that's one of them. If they don't, they're going to waste the cold bloodlust on your 2-drop, which would be your Kale, more than likely. Or they're going to waste the cold bloodlust on your 3-drop, which is probably going to be this to take a life card, or the evolve here to actually do this ability, that's eating the cold bloodlust, or they're going to actually do it on this guy, because you don't want to give... You don't want this auto to happen in some cases, so maybe this guy eats the cold bloodlust. But typically this card and or this card eats a cold bloodlust in this deck for turn 3 basically. On turn 4, obviously this is eating a cold bloodlust. You see what I'm saying? Every turn something's gonna threaten your cold bloodlust on your opponent's hand. And because that's the case, when you finally get to 5 energy, they're just not going to have any more cold bloodlusts for lightning fast hit. It's just going to be the thing. And if they didn't cold bloodlust foreseeing hit, you get to look at their hand and clearly see that they have no cold bloodlust. And if you suspect that they are running it, and they could potentially have it in their life, then you simply don't hit them. Wait for the next turn and evolve hit. Boom. They don't have the cold bloodlust because you didn't give them the 2 life cards. They probably didn't draw it off the top of their deck. So, like, that's just so many chances for them to not get a cold bloodlust. That is just how I would play it, honestly. So, in general, I feel like this is a really strong deck against players, even if they are running cold bloodlust. I will say that this deck can win just fine without lightning fast hit, and since that is a fact, cold bloodlust doesn't seem to matter. It just doesn't seem to make a difference. But I will also admit to having played around cold bloodlust, expecting my opponent to have it, and not wanting to eat it, because I wanted to win the game with lightning fast hit. It was like, I already had foreseeing hit in play, he couldn't deal with it, so I got to untap him, now I want to evolve hit, but I'm afraid of cold bloodlust and I don't know what else is in his hand, after so many turns had passed. But he didn't have the cold bloodlust, you guys, he just didn't have it. I found that out, but I actually won the game without the lightning fast hit on that one. So you will be in that matchup where you think that they could possibly have it and your lightning fast hit might actually eat it. That's fine. If you think that it's possible that they do have a cold bloodlust, don't let that possibility that they could possibly have a cold bloodlust actually affect your turn. Don't play around thinking that they have the answer to your play, and you will find that you win more games with this card. Just call their bluff on any of this stuff. Call their bluff. Be like, you know what? I don't care if you have the lightning fast hit. Drop this evolve target. Drop this evolve hit. Take 2. Or you cold bloodlust me. In which case, double strike. Next turn. Obviously, this turn it's only 25k single. But you're going to get there. Either way, cold bloodlust is not going to kill this deck. It's just not. So understand that it could affect your game, but it's not like you're going to get completely blown out because you don't see any chain attack trunks in here at all, do you? No. So I'm not going to get completely blown out when I tap 4 for a chain attack trunks. That's not going to happen because that shit gets wrecked by cold bloodlust 100% of the time. Just fucking gets wrecked. This deck is not going to be the case. Not going to be the case. So I really like this list. I would recommend this deck, and I feel like this video is getting quite long. So let's go ahead and end it here. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video and check out this list. Shout out to Lightning Fast Hit for making a comeback with all of these new Tournament of Power hit cards that they added. Who isn't playing Lightning Fast Hit deck? Like seriously, like this is a nuts deck. I really like it. Really do like it. And I hope I can actually win a lot of games with this deck before I get bored of it, right? And that's it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next one. Peace out, guys.